But first, to elections having consequences, and America will keep paying the price for electing Joe Biden for years and perhaps decades to come. Not only did Biden's disastrous execution of the Afghanistan withdrawal see hundreds of American citizens abandoned in an Islamist hellhole, but he left the terrorists who now run that Islamist hellhole tens of billions in military equipment that they are now proudly parading, including Black Hawk helicopters, armoured vehicles, and an arsenal of weapons, including American M16 rifles. The Islamist extremists' victory parade, I think we're bringing you some footage of it here in Kandahar, is an indictment on the Biden administration, who only a few weeks ago assured the world that the Taliban wouldn't overtake the country in a matter of days. The Taliban victory parade featured terrorist fighters standing on top of a long line of captured Humvees and other tactical vehicles, while a Black Hawk helicopter circled ahead. Since the Afghanistan catastrophe, a massive win for America's enemies, including Iran, Russia and China, Biden has continued to embarrass the US on the world stage. There was this dopey performance with new Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett.
Yet another chapter in the beautiful story of the friendship between our two nations, the United States of America and the Jewish and democratic state of Israel, both of us who seek to do good and need to be strong, both of us who are...
Never mind how tired and uninterested he looked in front of the cameras, it has since emerged that during the talks, Biden failed to raise the critical issue of China, leaving the new Israeli Prime Minister surprised. Is it because he doesn't have a coherent policy on China, or did the president just forget? Who can be sure when it comes to Dopey Joe? Nicholas, the man is an international embarrassment.
Well, look, I don't agree with you on that last point, but I do agree that the haphazard withdrawal by the US from Afghanistan has worried America's allies and emboldened America's enemies, and that's not a good thing for the world, although I do hope in the longer term that the fact that the US is no longer pouring so much human life and treasure into the Afghanistan war. Afghanistan has been known as the graveyard for civilizations. That is empires, is probably a good thing for the US and the US's supporters. I mean, there's nothing that the United States competitors like Russia and China would like to see more than America continue pouring all its resources into a futile battle.
I think they're pretty happy with how things have turned out, and China isn't closing its embassy in Afghanistan. In fact, I think they're talking about increasing aid, and this is a very different Taliban to the ones who were behind terrorist attacks around the world. The ideology is the same, but they're far more organised. They're far better armed now. But they've been in discussions with Iranian government, the regime. They've been in discussions with China and other world leader, other countries in their region. So they have become legitimised, and it's frightening. Yeah, I agree with you that America can't stay in Afghanistan forever. They were already there for, 20 years, $2 trillion spent there, thousands of lives lost. But I do feel for the Afghan people. I feel particularly for the Afghan women. Their future is horrific.
I fear for them as well. That's one of the reasons why I hope that Australia does its bit and takes a generous intake of asylum seekers from Afghanistan.
We're not going to be able to take every Afghan woman living under Sharia law, let's be honest here.
No, of course not. But there are particular groups that we know are vulnerable, and like Canada, Britain and others, we should take at least 20,000. That would be a good start.
Well, I think Australia runs one of the most generous humanitarian programs in the world. You look at our per capita intake, it's right up there. And we've already committed to taking an extra 3,000 from Afghanistan. And I think that is very generous indeed, because we...
Not an extra 3,000, it was actually 3,000 from within the 15,000 allocation,
sorry.
which of course was cut by 5,000 last year under the cover of
Still,
COVID. So we could, as I was saying, we could be
generous.
far more generous as a nation on that front.